Hello, History Through Film. So today we are going to do U3-L12 intro to medieval warfare. So learning targets is an introduction to weapons from the medieval period. The medieval period is classified between the 500s and about the 1500s CE, or Common Era, from around the world. Um, we're also going to summarize the First War of Scottish Independence, and then at the end of this video, I attached another video that introduces more of like what was true and what was false about the movie Braveheart, which is the next movie you're going to watch. So your job is you're going to write down details about the weapons in your study guide, um, write down the basics of the First War of Scottish Independence also, and then watch the video to gain understanding of Braveheart. So isn't that just exciting? Oop, come on. There we go. So let's get started. When we get into the Middle Ages, this is where firearms start to get invented. So the very, very first firearm in history is something called the Chinese hand cannon. And it was made about the 1200s in China, and it became popular in Europe in about the 1400s. So it was made out of metal, and you could carry it with one arm. So that was really revolutionary, right? Because before there were cannons, and cannons were like these giant, heavy things that like many men would have to push and wheel around. This is a firearm that, well, you can literally carry in your arm. It was ignited by a match or a flame. At first, it only launched like these little stones or even like little arrows. They weren't anywhere near what we think of a bullet today. And then that's where the Europeans would create iron balls, which would then eventually led to the creation of the bullet. All right, claymore. This you will definitely see in Braveheart. This is the weapon that William Wallace, who is the main character, wields. It's a two-handed Scottish sword. It's very distinct due to its hilt. So the hilt is like the handle thing, and it's sloping downwards, as you can see here in the picture. So it kind of makes almost like a little triangle shape. It is very unique for its very long blade, so it's up to 42 inches, or it could actually be even bigger than that. It could be up to 55 inches. I mean, think of that. That's crazy. I mean, that's taller than, I think is that taller than me? I don't know. I can't think math right now. I'm so sorry. It could also weigh up to 6.2 pounds, which doesn't seem like a lot, but remember, you have to swing that thing around in order to like fight your enemies. And it was seen as a symbol of physical strength. Then there's the long bow. So this was used for hunting as far back as 3300 BCE. So it's more of like an ancient technology, but it became very popular in warfare in about the 1300 CE, especially in England. So it's unique for its almost body tall size, as you can see here, like in this picture. Like if this, I know this is just a painting, but if this dude was to put it like down by his feet, it'd be almost as tall as he is. So it could be anywhere between 60 to 70 inches tall. It was great for warfare because the wood, or also known as the yew, was very bendable. It goes back into its shape after launching the arrow. And it was incredibly easy to make. A soldier can make one on the go in as little as 4 hours, and it had a range up to 200 yards. All right, now for more of the brutal weapons, we have things like mace and morning star. Those are a series of club-like weapons and spikes at the end of it. I'm sure you've seen probably like this one before in like movies or video games or something like that. But they come in all shapes and sizes. It's a part of the mace family of weapons, and that just is classified by a blunt weapon with a heavy end. It could have a wooden handle with metal spikes at the end. That was typically how they were made. It also may have a chain between the handle and the spike ball. I don't have a picture of that one here. Oh, wait, do I? Yes, there it is. I was hiding it. I knew it. So one of those things. And it was a very easy weapon for peasants to create because they could just make it out of stuff that they had maybe lying around. So again, it's just a wooden handle with a ball of spiky nails that maybe they got from the blacksmith, and they just kind of hammered it in, and bam, you got a weapon. All right. Then we have the arquebus. So this is the first firearm that is identified as a long gun. So now it's looking more of like guns that we think of today. It's the ancestor to the musket, which the musket was, like famous during like the Revolutionary War in America and stuff like that. It was made in the mid 1400s in Europe or the Ottoman Empire. It's not sure which came first, or maybe they came at the same time. If you don't know where the Ottoman Empire is, that's okay. Um, that is a really powerful empire that's not talked about a lot, but they were located in North Africa and into the Middle East. It's also the first firearm with a trigger. So you didn't have to light a match to ignite it to go off. All you would do is you would just pull the trigger, which would cause a spark, making it go off. And it also allowed militaries to do volley firing, and that's where a line of soldiers fire at an enemy at the same time, causing mass casualties. So here's an example here. They also couldn't hold it up by themselves, so they had these like little pole sticks to like put on the ground because it was still too awkward to fire compared to like modern day firearms. All right, now we will talk about the scimitar, which is kind of like an iconic sword. Whenever I see the sword, I think of like Disney's Aladdin. They had those in that movie. But it's a curved blade sword. One edge is very sharp, the other one's a little bit more dull. It is the first used in the Middle East and Western Asia in about the 900s. It was particularly used by soldiers on horseback. The reason for that is because the curved blade was a lot lighter than like a double-edged blade, and it allowed the curve of a man's arms motion to cut an opponent more effectively. Um, right, because if you're swinging it this way with the curve of the sword. And apparently, it was like less air resistance or something, so you could like kill your enemy that much easier. I don't know, physics. Modern day, it is used on the flags for Saudi Arabia and also the Ministry of Defense for Turkey. So there's still a symbol today, which is kind of cool. All right, next up, we're going to talk about Scotland and England. So this is what you need to know. Here's a map of Europe right here. England, okay, or the United Kingdom that we call it today, is this like really long island and this little island. Today we call that the United Kingdom. Now, back in the 1200s, they were separated. So, right here is England, and up here is Scotland. And you can see it in this map too, okay? So, here's England, Scotland, Ireland. They were all their own little separate countries. They aren't together like they are today. So it's really, really important that you know in the 1200s, Scotland and England were two separate countries and they did not like each other. All right, so let's talk about the First War of Scottish Independence because this is what Braveheart is all about. Um, I just abbreviated, by the way, to FWSI, so I don't have to say First War of Scottish Independence like 5 times. So, the ruler of Scotland was this dude here. His name was Alexander III. He died in 1286. His successor was a young girl who died 4 years after him. So there was like a crazy power struggle for the crown of Scotland. A lot of different men were like, I should be king, I should be king. Um, but there was also a lot of outside pressure. So England, who Scotland hated, had a king. His name was Henry I, and he himself wanted to rule Scotland. So the Scots were like, no, we do not want King Henry the First from England to rule Scotland, because remember, England and Scotland hate each other. So Henry was like, fine, I'm going to appoint someone to the Scottish throne. So he appointed this dude named Robert the Bruce to become king. And Scots were like, no, you can't do that. You're not even our king. Why are you like appointing this guy that's just going to benefit you, Henry? So the Scots were really not happy about this choice. So the Scottish noblemen and clergy called for Scottish unity to take down England's control of Scotland. So the Scottish resistance was headed by this dude. His name was William Wallace. He was a nobleman. Wallace defeated the English at the Battle of Stirling Bridge in 1297. It's in the movie. It's kind of an underdog story. This is kind of the reason why he's so famous. It's because the little guy, which is Scotland, beat the big guy, England, during this Battle of Stirling Bridge. So Wallace then lost a battle at Falkirk in 1298, and I won't spoil the movie of what happens to William Wallace after he loses the battle. So just let that you can figure that out during the movie. The peace treaty was then signed by Scotland and England, saying that Scotland is independent from England, but that Robert the Bruce, who was appointed by the English King Henry, he's still King of Scotland. So are they really independent? No, right? Because Robert the Bruce is just going to do whatever English King Henry says. So next up is a video from the infographic show going into more detail about the background of Braveheart and its historical inaccuracies. So yes, the movie is kind of based off of a true story, but there's a lot of inaccuracies about it. Once you're done with the Ed puzzle, you can go and start watching Braveheart. If you have any questions or comments or want to learn more, feel free to email me or stop by my office hours. I'm more than happy to help you out. All right, enjoy the infographic show video.